Welcome to the Avoidant Guide. I want to share something that may completely change the way you understand silence in relationships, especially when you are dealing with someone with an avoidant attachment style. When they suddenly stop responding, disappear for days, or create distance without explanation, your first thought is usually painful. You assume they do not care, you feel forgotten, you believe their silence means you are no longer important. But the truth is often much deeper. For many avoidant people, silence is not always a sign of a lack of feelings. Sometimes it is the result of an emotional battle happening inside them. The conflict is not simply between you and them. It is between their desire for connection and the defenses they have built to protect themselves. Most people experience love through closeness, communication, affection, and consistency. But for an avoidant, love can sometimes trigger fear before it creates comfort. The stronger their feelings become, the more their nervous system may react as if they are facing danger. This pattern usually has deep roots. Many avoidant people learn that emotional closeness can bring pain, disappointment, or a loss of independence. They begin to see vulnerability as risky and depending on someone as dangerous. So when genuine feelings start growing, they may not only feel happiness, they may feel overwhelmed. A connection that should feel safe can suddenly feel like something they need to escape. They do not always pull away because they feel nothing. Sometimes they pull away because they feel more than they know how to handle. One of their deepest fears is losing themselves inside a relationship. Somewhere inside them is the belief, if I let someone get too close, I might lose who I am. For years, emotional distance may have been their protection. Independence became their comfort. Their walls became their safety. The hardest part is not only your love, it is what your love awakens inside them. When they begin missing you, thinking about you, or realizing how much you affect their emotions, their belief that they can handle everything alone starts to weaken. That can create fear, so they retreat, they become quiet, they create distance, not always because they want to hurt you, but because they are trying to regain control over emotions that feel too intense. Silence becomes their way of managing feelings they do not know how to express. The surprising truth is that they are not only avoiding you, they are also avoiding their own emotions. Accepting that they care means accepting vulnerability. It means allowing someone to matter, and that can feel terrifying. This is why avoidant behavior is often misunderstood. People see distance and assume it means they do not care, but sometimes distance is their way of coping with emotional overload. The closeness you are offering may be the exact thing their nervous system struggles to handle. They are not always running because they want less of you. Sometimes they run because they do not know how to carry the intensity of what they feel. Of course, understanding avoidant psychology does not mean accepting unhealthy behavior. It does not mean tolerating neglect, inconsistency, or endless confusion. It simply means you stop making their withdrawal a reflection of your worth. Their silence is not proof that you are not enough. It is often a reflection of the conflict happening inside them. Sometimes silence becomes an avoidant person's confusing way of dealing with emotions. It may not be the communication you deserve, but it can come from fear rather than a complete absence of feelings. Avoiding you does not always mean forgetting you. Sometimes it is their attempt to manage emotions they cannot fully understand. So instead of only asking, "Why are they not talking to me?" ask a deeper question. What are they trying so hard not to feel? Because sometimes silence is not where love disappears. Sometimes silence is where fear hides from love. Now think about those small moments when an avoidant quietly appears again. A simple message, a reaction to your story, a like on your post, watching what you share without starting a real conversation. Many people ignore these things, but sometimes these small actions reveal more than they seem. When an avoidant reaches out without fully reconnecting, it does not always mean they are ready to return completely. Sometimes it means they were never able to fully let go. They want enough closeness to feel connected, but enough distance to avoid feeling trapped. This is the push and pull pattern. It is not always confusion. It is often a battle between attachment and self-protection. When they send a small message, they are not only checking your reaction, they are checking themselves. Can I talk to this person without becoming overwhelmed? Can I get close without losing control? Can I handle these feelings? Many avoidants struggle with direct emotional expression because they learned that showing feelings can lead to rejection or disappointment, so they communicate indirectly. A short message, a reaction, a random check-in, a late-night appearance. These things may look small, but emotionally, they can represent feelings they are afraid to say. I still think about you. I still miss you. I just do not know how to express it. Because once those feelings become real, vulnerability becomes unavoidable. Their deepest fear is not only intimacy, it is emotional dependency. The moment they realize you influence their emotions, peace, or thoughts, fear can appear. That is when they may disappear again. Not because their feelings are gone, because their feelings feel too powerful. Leaving completely can hurt. Returning fully can feel overwhelming. So they remain somewhere in the middle, watching quietly, checking in occasionally, staying emotionally connected while keeping physical distance. Many people mistake this for not caring, but someone who truly feels nothing usually does not keep finding ways to stay connected. They do not repeatedly return. They do not maintain invisible emotional bonds. What you may be seeing is not emptiness. It may be attachment hidden beneath fear, pride, and old survival patterns. What looks effortless to you may require a huge internal struggle for them. They are trying to control love by controlling how much they allow themselves to show. And every time they reach toward you, they are reminded that they were never as detached as they wanted to believe. So if an avoidant quietly checks in but struggles to fully reconnect, remember this. You may still hold an important place in their emotional world. You have not necessarily been forgotten. You may simply be behind emotional walls, because those walls are the only way they know how to manage intense feelings. The real question is not whether they think about you. The real question is whether they can handle everything they feel when they do. Have you noticed how an avoidant can suddenly become warm, affectionate, and open, almost like their walls disappear? For a moment, they allow you into a hidden part of themselves. Then suddenly, everything changes. They become distant, cold, unavailable. That shift feels personal, but often it happens when their feelings become impossible to ignore. When they experience genuine emotional safety, their nervous system may interpret it as losing control. The closeness you desire can feel like an internal alarm, so they create distance to reduce emotional intensity. They may focus on work, create unnecessary conflict, or ask for space. These actions are not always meant to punish you. They are often attempts to calm emotions they do not know how to handle. Deep down, they are protecting the identity they spent years creating, because love challenges the boundaries they built to feel safe. A question begins forming inside them. If we become this close, where do I end and where do you begin? And here is the paradox. If you truly meant nothing to them, they would not need these defenses. Avoidants do not build strong walls around people who have no emotional impact. They create their strongest defenses around the connections that matter most, because only someone important has the power to awaken the fears they have spent a lifetime trying to escape. Your closeness can awaken the very wounds that created their avoidance in the first place. Old experiences where needing someone led to rejection, where vulnerability was met with criticism, or where dependence ended in disappointment can still live beneath the surface. Somewhere deep inside, their mind created a rule. Never again. So when you enter a place in their heart where those old fears still exist, their instinct is often to push you away before they can experience the same pain again. But there is another layer to this behavior. Sometimes self-sabotage becomes an unconscious test. Without realizing it, they are asking, will you still choose me when I am difficult? Will you stay when I become distant? Can your love survive the parts of me that are afraid? They rarely say this directly. They may not even understand that they are doing it. But somewhere inside, they are searching for proof that someone can handle their emotional storms without abandoning them. The tragedy is that the very test they create to find security can damage the connection they secretly desire. But when you understand the pattern, you no longer have to participate in the chaos. You can remain compassionate without losing yourself. You can stay calm, maintain your boundaries, and show them what emotional consistency looks like without taking away their independence. Notice the paradox. The closer you become, the more they may pull away. And sometimes that withdrawal happens because you have reached a place inside them that very few people ever reach. Yes, it can hurt. Yes, it can feel confusing. But understanding their behavior allows you to see the difference between rejection and emotional overwhelm. Instead of thinking, I am not enough, you begin to understand. My presence activated something they are struggling to process. With that awareness, you stop chasing every moment of distance. You observe. You allow them space without abandoning yourself. You show them that intimacy can exist without pressure. You become an example of emotional safety. And slowly, they can begin learning that staying close does not mean losing themselves. Of course, none of this means accepting disrespect, emotional neglect, or endless inconsistency. Boundaries are necessary. They protect both people. So the next time an avoidant pulls away after opening up, do not immediately assume the connection was fake. Sometimes the retreat comes because the connection became real. Sometimes what looks like rejection is actually their nervous system saying, "This feels deeper than I know how to handle." If you can respond with calmness and self-respect, you create the only environment where growth is possible. Now let's uncover another misunderstood part of avoidant behavior, the illusion that they forget. They may act like they forgot your birthday. They may pretend they do not remember the song connected to a special memory. They may behave as if your favorite things were never important. But behind that detached expression, something very different may be happening. Many avoidant people are extremely observant. Their survival system often depends on noticing patterns, moods, reactions, and changes in people around them. While they may appear disconnected on the outside, their mind can be collecting details constantly. The way you react when you are uncomfortable, the small change in your voice when something bothers you, the exact moment you become quieter, the things you casually mention that you think they forgot. They may remember much more than they admit. This happens because people with attachment wounds often become highly aware of emotional signals. Their nervous system is constantly scanning for changes. Did her tone change? Why did he respond differently today? Did something I said create distance? On the outside, they may appear calm and unaffected, but internally, they may be processing everything. That is why months later, they can suddenly mention a small detail you shared once, a dream you had, a goal you wanted to achieve, a place you wanted to visit. They did not forget. They stored it away. For them, remembering is a way of holding on to meaning. But openly admitting they remember can feel dangerous, because if they acknowledge how much they notice, they also have to acknowledge how much they care. And caring creates vulnerability. Vulnerability creates responsibility. Responsibility can feel like a threat to their independence. So instead, they may hide their memory behind casual behavior. Oh, I just happened to see that place you like. I randomly bought the thing you mentioned. But often, it was not random. It was their quiet way of saying, I pay attention to you. I know you. You matter to me. Their actions can become the words they struggle to speak. Sometimes pretending not to remember is also a defense mechanism. If they admit they remember everything, they have to face the reality that you have a significant place in their emotional world, and that can feel overwhelming. But pay attention to what happens when you truly step away, when you stop reaching out, when your energy changes, when your presence becomes quieter. They often notice faster than they show. Their nervous system recognizes the change. They may wonder, what happened? Why are they distant now? Did I do something? Not because they suddenly started caring, because they were already paying attention. Understanding this helps you stop arguing with their image of indifference. You do not need to force someone to admit what their actions already reveal. Instead, hold your standards. Stay respectful. Stay grounded. Let honesty come when they are ready for it. The goal is not to chase proof that they remember you. The goal is to recognize that their attention already shows impact. Then you decide what you are willing to accept, because your value does not depend on convincing someone of what they already feel. And now let's go deeper into something many people overlook, the moment an avoidant watches you grow. Not when you chase them, not when you beg for attention, not when you revolve your life around their silence, but when you turn your focus back toward yourself, when you stop seeking their approval and start building your own happiness. That is often when something shifts. Many people think avoidants only respond to distance, but what truly affects them is seeing someone become independent without becoming bitter. It is not rejection. It is self-respect. It is not punishment. It is personal growth. You are no longer trying to convince them of your value. You are living from the understanding that your value was always there. And that is the moment their emotional system can begin questioning the walls they built. Because they are no longer dealing with someone chasing them. They are seeing someone who can love deeply while still choosing themselves. And that is a completely different kind of connection. The more emotionally secure and independent you become, the more an avoidant may begin to feel the impact of your absence. Not because they suddenly become fully available, but because they are forced to face something that can feel even more uncomfortable than closeness. The fear of no longer mattering. Understand this. Avoidant people are not always afraid of being alone. Many are afraid of becoming insignificant to someone they deeply care about. When you stop relying on them for your emotional stability, you challenge the belief they have carried for years. I am safest when I do not need anyone. When you stop chasing, convincing, and constantly seeking their attention, the old dynamic begins to disappear. They were comfortable when you were waiting at the emotional door, hoping they would open it. But when you step back and return your energy to yourself, everything changes. You are no longer waiting outside. You are building your own life. And that shift can deeply affect them. This is when they may begin doing things that seem different from their usual behavior. A random message, a memory they suddenly mention, a small attempt to reconnect, a question that seems unnecessary. But often, it is not about the answer. It is about checking the connection. Do I still matter? Do they still think about me? Do I still affect them? The more peaceful and grounded you become, the more their internal conflict becomes visible. They may try to recreate old patterns. They may create small conflicts. They may act like nothing has changed, but something has changed. You have changed. And that can be unsettling because they never expected you to grow without them. But your independence is not revenge. Your healing is not a strategy to make them chase you. It is simply you returning to yourself. Your power appears when your silence comes from peace, not punishment. When your boundaries come from self-respect, not control. When your growth comes from truth, not the desire to prove something. That is when the entire dynamic shifts. Not because you push them away, but because you stopped abandoning yourself to stay close to them. And when they feel the absence of your emotional dependence, it can become louder than any argument. Not anger, not revenge. Just the quiet presence of someone who no longer needs to chase love. That is often when reflection begins, not during fights, not during emotional chaos, but in the silence afterward. When they realize your distance is no longer a reaction, it is growth. Whether they return or not, something has changed. They now see that you are not waiting, you are becoming. So the next time you wonder if they notice your transformation, your boundaries, or your peace, remember this. Avoidant people may not always express their feelings, but they often notice when someone they care about stops revolving around their fears. Deep down, they may begin asking, how did they move beyond the silence I created? How did they heal what I'm still avoiding? Your healing does not only free you, it also forces them to face the one thing they have spent years running from, themselves. Now let's talk about one of the most misunderstood moments with an avoidant partner, your vulnerability, the kind that is real, unfiltered, and impossible to hide. When you cry in front of them, not to manipulate them, but simply because you are being honest about your emotions, their reaction may surprise you. They may become quiet, they may freeze, they may create distance, and many people immediately assume, my emotions were too much. I scared them away. But what if that moment was not rejection? What if it was fear meeting something they do not know how to handle? Many avoidant people grew up in environments where emotions were ignored, criticized, or treated as unsafe. So when someone openly expresses pain, they may not know how to respond. They are not always rejecting your feelings. Sometimes they are overwhelmed by them. Your emotions bring them into a place they were never taught to navigate. For them, feelings are not always comforting. Sometimes feelings feel like danger. But here is what many people miss. If they truly felt nothing, your vulnerability would not affect them. Indifference does not create discomfort. Indifference does not create an emotional reaction. Your openness affects them because it challenges the walls they have spent years building. Your vulnerability says, I trust you enough to let you see the real me. And for someone who has survived by staying emotionally guarded, that trust can feel both beautiful and frightening. The irony is that what you see as weakness, your tears, your honesty, your emotional openness, may actually represent a strength they admire but struggle to express. They are not always pulling away because your emotions are too much. Sometimes they pull away because your emotions reveal what they have been avoiding inside themselves. You become a mirror. You reflect the feelings they have learned to hide. So remember this: do not shrink yourself. Do not apologize for having a heart. Do not make yourself smaller just to make someone comfortable. Your emotions are not the problem. Your honesty is not the problem. You are not a burden. You are showing what emotional safety looks like. You are not breaking down. You are showing courage. What happens afterward may not be immediate. They may need space. They may distract themselves. They may pretend nothing happened. But that does not mean the moment disappeared. They may remember your tears, your words, your honesty, the fact that you did not attack them. You simply allowed yourself to feel. Those moments stay with people because they are real. You cannot force someone to meet you emotionally. That is not your responsibility. But you can refuse to betray yourself just to make their emotional limitations easier to handle. Your role is not to make your feelings more acceptable. Your role is to honor your truth with courage. Whether they grow with you or move away, your authenticity still has value. It either creates a deeper connection or reveals where the connection ends. So the next time your vulnerability is met with silence, remember this: your emotions did not scare them away. They touched something inside them. What they choose to do with that awakening is their journey, not your burden.